Hey guys, and welcome to Pheas Software. Today we're going to do a disassembly for repairs and maintenance on this double Eagle DMP9 or M924. Hey guys, and welcome back. If you do enjoy this content today, please do consider liking, commenting, subscribing. All the usual gubbins, YouTube algorithm, all that kind of thing. Really appreciated. Socials are all down in the link tree down below. If you want to support the channel more, channel memberships are on the join button down below. Usual gubbins applies. Nobody likes hearing that. So let's get started. First thing, a slight disclaimer about this video. If you think, man, why is the video kind of changing colour? Is there something wrong with my phone? No, there is nothing wrong with your phone. The light fitting I have in this room is one that's got lights on it, and it's got like little LEDs as like a night light, and you couldn't even make this up. I can't find the remote, so it's currently going through basically this rainbow cycle of colours. So if you find that there's a slight hint change of colouring, that is why. It's not your eyes, it's not your phone screen, it is literally the light in this room. And I've got no other options for filming, so I do apologise immensely. So we've got the DMP then. So this was filmed before the unboxing. I have been out and run this for, I was going to say a day, for a couple of games, which sort of didn't go massively well due to basically excessive grease in the mags. So as part of the disassembly, we're just going to look at this for repairs and maintenance and things like that. Excuse me, and see what kind of awesomeness is going off on there. So the muzzle brake is no grub screw, which is nice to see, to be honest. Although it does add security, just 14mm negative thread under there, so you can get that on and off. We've got the battery compartment there, which is just twist and unplug to remove. Get that out of the way. The front and rear sight, just undo the screws, and they will drop the bolt out, take the pin out, and that will just come off without any problem. We're going to take the front handguard off. Now, it is pretty proprietary, to be honest, for a lot of things. So, you know, if you're thinking about, oh, I can do this and add this to it, it's quite proprietary, to be honest. So, you know, don't let that dishearten you. It is good quality proprietary. But a lot of it, like the handguard, we can see it's formed into the front of the body there. You know, that's deliberate choice. Now, I don't know if I just need to loosen that off. No, it looks like this is a tab here, so I'm gonna have to fully remove. Oh, there goes that. So I should be able to, just gonna push those through. Well, pinging about. There's two screws, and then this should come loose, he says. Oh, I'm guessing it's pinned into there as well, so it does need to come out of there as well. So I'm just going to take this off camera and push this front pin through and out because it is quite stiff. Now, for all intents and purposes, it's pretty much a AR by construction, airsoft AR. Obviously just with a few extra bells and whistles. So this front body pin there is sort of like a D type, so it's got a flat edge on it, which matches with there. That handguard still doesn't want to come off. Oh, come on, Pheas, that's slack. That there is a screw in the top. So before I used a Torx 15 to get those out. That's a smaller one. I think that's too big. No, it's not. Torx 10 then is the screw on top. I can't believe I missed that. Oops, daisy. And yes, I am clumsy. I have been really excited to get into this. So just get that out the last little bit. I just had to get purchase on that, and that literally was just retaining that in. So that handguard then would have come off with just those two pins out of the way. We've got our battery slot in the top there, which is obviously a substantial length. And then we've got the front there off. So we've got our outer barrel. So it is a unique outer barrel attachment point. So getting some grips on that, we'll be able to unscrew that, which is mounted in with, you've got 4 screws there that comprise most of this assembly here. It looks like there's an extra screw underneath there as well, just holding, retaining that to the rest of the body. So for now, we'll carefully get that threaded back in, making sure that the battery wire goes down and out the front of the battery compartment. I'm going to push that screw back in and screw it back in. Again, that was a Torx 10 on that one. I'm going to flip this back over. So we've got two screw head holes there. We've got this plate here that goes in, so it sits flush like that. Now, if you look inside of that, we've got threads at one end, but the threads run out at the other. So, you know, it should be fairly obvious which way round it goes. It should really only fit in one way properly. So I'm just going to drop that in, switch back to my other bits. That's one tightened in. That's the other tightened in. So now we've got the upper body pin off. We can sort of relieve. In fact, we can't remove the upper assembly. Slight difference here. So I'm just going to fold the stock over, and we're going to basically remove this screw here, which I think this is a 15 as well. I lied. It's a 10. My ratchet is about to fall apart. There we go. So there we go. I'm going to undo this, and this will basically just fall apart. So we'll discuss that when we're reassembling later. The stock comes off, which is nice. And then we need to remove this top screw, which should also be a Torx 10, and it is. There we go. So there it is. There is, be careful, a little washer on that. So there was a little washer on that, so I've got that out of the way. Now I can see there already that the front end is already going. If it does catch a little bit, I found that it tends to catch. There is a battery thing here. You're just going to have to lift the receiver up and delicately pull on the wiring. Now the wiring, to get it out, it does need, if you look down in here, I don't know how well the camera's picking that up, but the battery connector needs to go vertical like that to get into the gap that's down there. It can't come out sideways like that. It's got to twist over. But then that means I'll lower his out, which we'll look at in a moment. There's our barrel and hop assembly. Now I can see there's, you know, quite a bit of gunk in there, and it is a split type, and I can get that lined up properly. Hopefully that catches the focus proper. So it is a split type, that's fully on. It was hopping 2 5s with absolutely no issues whatsoever, with not the full hop on. And it is a roll down to apply hop, so the barrel probably needs a good clean. The mags, I did notice, were quite a lot of sort of oil grease in the body, in the packaging, and I found that they fed lovely, but they were just basically the what's the word I'm looking for? The hop just wasn't applying because there was so much grease, and they were basically just slipping through there. So now we've got a bit of a unique concoction at the back here. So we've got this plate. So we've got here a screw that will release the spring guide out the back, and then we've got 4 screws that are holding this back plate in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch out to, guessing it's that size, and I am right. So I need a Torx 25, a T25 bit, to undo this back screw here. Now notice at the minute we've got no sign of a quick change spring system here, so that's got quite a chunky thick nut with a washer on it. Get that out of the way. I'm then going to downsize, I'm guessing, to an 8. Yes. So now I'm going for a Torx 8 to remove these back screws here. Now I'm not necessarily saying you have to. This is more just for the purpose of exploration. Now this back plate is actually metal, which is quite reassuring that they've put, you know, invested in a little bit more solid material for the back rail there to mount the stock on. And I do quite like the idea of this sort of back panel rail to basically mount your stocks on. So it's a little bit easier if you buy the appropriate stocks to mount them on there, particularly if that one breaks. A little bit further on that one. Still not enough. There goes one of the screws. There we go. So get that out of the way with its 4 little screws. So that was a Torx 8 for that. There is our quick change spring system, which will come out. So I've pushed in and it's a 1/4 turn anti-clockwise. There's our spring and spring guide, which we'll discuss in fact we might as well do it now. So got in there quite a thick, chunky, bearing based spring guide. So as the spring compresses, it will want to twist a little bit, and the bearings just allow that twist to happen, and it helps supposedly with, I believe health of the spring and consistency of the shots as well. Now we have got quite a tight loop round from the back here of the wiring that comes out the back of the gearbox and quite tightly loops back round and over to the front. We've obviously got also to consider a little bit on the front that does the magazine cutoff. So let's have a look. Now that's integrated into there. I don't know how we're going to get that out at the moment because that's not a button. So let's go the traditional route first. I've just noticed as well there are 2 screws there which might need to be undone to release this frame, but we'll see because it's shaped like it should allow us to slip the gearbox in, but we'll see how this goes shortly because it does look like it might be holding that bottom part in. So first of all, let's get this pistol grip open. So Torx 8 again on the 2 screws in the bottom of the pistol grip. So there's our thick chunky base plate. We've got the red wire in at the back there. There we go, lift that up and off its terminal. And then we've got the black wire at the front there. So I'm just going to move those out of the way. There is our stock double Eagle motor there. No word on what TPA that actually is. I then need a long Phillips head screwdriver to get the 2 Phillips head screws down in there. So one is at this back right position. So it's down here. The other one is here. Now, when this screw comes out, what we don't want to do is we don't want to pull on these. So I'm just going to push those in gently, and I'm just going to gently feed those through because I don't want to rag those connectors off. So that's out of the way nicely. Put that out of the way. Next, I'm probably going to have to do those selectors are ambidextrous, so they're going to have to come off. I've got a pin there. We've got all sorts of stuff going off here, so I'm guessing these little screws in here need to come out as well, which I'll deal with in a second. So we'll do the selectors first. I'm guessing it is 8. I was going to say Torx 10, but it must be 8. Now I've got this one braced down with my thumb because I'm assuming there's a springy ball bearing under there. And they're on, it's not as bad as I thought. So it is the traditional sort of like VFC styley ambi selectors with a screw in the middle. And there is, it's not a ball bearing, it's like a little notch on the end of a spring that sits inside. We'll discuss that when we're reassembling it. Flip it over then, and I'll disconnect this one. There's no thing under this side. I'll discuss that the selectors are different when we're reassembling. We've now got this back body pin, which I've just found there's a little pin there. Can I pull that around? So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to basically push on the little split pin to get it round so I can access it. There we go. So you can just see it coming up there. I'm just going to get the top of it. There we go. Look. So there was the little split pin there. I've just pulled off the end of the pin, which means then that pin now, in theory, yeah, I've just pushed on it and it's come straight out, and there is the bit where it sits. Still can't get that out yet. We'll punch the trigger pin out, guessing that way. Yeah, so the teeth were on this right hand side here. That's out of the way. Oh wow, I weren't expecting that at all. I did not expect that to just lift up and out. That literally came out so easy. That's unbelievable. Wow. Do you know what? Actually, I'm going to give credit to Double Eagle for that, because there's a lot of proprietariness in there, and that could have been significantly more difficult than it actually was. So, you know, well done to you guys for that. So we're going to discuss the sort of ambidextrous selectors a little bit more when we're reassembling. But what I'm going to do is we're just going to get a flat head under this. And I'm just going to separate it up from the underlying one. So there we go. And that one out the way there. That one may fall out. It's absolutely fine. I might just take it out. There it goes. Out the way. So we've now got our gearbox. So we've got obviously a proprietary wire clip on top there. We've got a proprietary system here at the front. So this does the detection of the mag cut off, that basically when the mag is empty, let me grab the mag, we've got a little tab on the back there that will engage this little switch here, and obviously if we put a fresh mag in that's basically going to keep it depressed or impressed, then it'll continue to work properly. The minute it's out, obviously there's an issue, it flicks on that and it knows to cut off. So that is just looking at how I think we need to remove that screw there. So what we'll do first is, we're under no compression anymore. I'm going to remove this one first. So I'm just going to bring my Phillips head in again. Put that over there. That should just, and it does just lift off, and it is just a plastic clip that's clipped onto the gearbox. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this one here. Again, it's a Phillips head. That's instantly become loose, which says to me I'm on the right lines here. So that's got a slightly different kind of screw to the one I've just taken out the back. So this one I've just taken out, it's got much thicker, chunkier sort of biting threads to bite into the plastic. That one's got much thinner, closer together ones, so don't mix them up because you may cause issues. Then we should be able to just take the rest of these screws out, Torx 8s, and we've got quite a few. Now as you're taking these out, as per usual, please keep them in the right order, because they may be slightly different sizes, and until you've got them all out you won't know that for definite. So there's nothing to see here for a few seconds, folks. Go make a brew, whatever. I will speed this section up. I'll see you in a moment. So the eagle-eyed among you will have noticed that suddenly a much longer bit appeared in my screwdriver. So this particular screw here was rounding out a little bit, and the Torx I was using was just basically spinning it. So fortunately, by chance, I have ordered some bits from, basically on the cheap, a set of bits. I'll show you what they look like. I'll even put a link down below. A set of Torx long bits, and one of them happened to be a T9 up from a T8, so T10 wasn't quite going in. The T9 sat in it perfectly. So if anything, I'd actually recommend for these, if you've got availability of it, a Torx 9 bit. Now I was quite fortunate that I happened to just have that laying around, otherwise I probably would have had to mutilate that screw a little bit further. So now we're ready to get into that gearbox then. So just as a quick overview, it obviously is a standard looking trigger. We've got a standard AR type selector plate there. It does look quite enhanced, quite thick and chunky actually. We have got a vented cylinder as well. So we're going to get that out of the way. There's obviously no compression, and I'm just going to lift that up. Slight distraction there. So we're just going to continue to roll forward. Please, it's not separating. I actually think the sticker is in the way. There we go. Does not want to separate. There we go. Actually the cylinder head. So internally it's pretty much as we are used to seeing from Double Eagle. And then that we've got obviously the Kestral is a different addition, but the gear set is very much as we would expect to see from them. We've got the same sort of piston and piston head assembly. God, come on, Pheas. Cylinder head assembly as well. Spring went topping off. Got the yellow tappet plate. So just to show you, got your air nozzle there, which goes backwards and forwards to let the BBs up into the hop unit and then feed the air out the cylinder. That sits on a tappet plate. The tappet plate hooks into the air nozzle and goes backwards and forwards on a spring that's pulled by our sector gear. And then we've got inside our cylinder head, we've got our piston, which is mostly plastic teeth. So this has probably had close to 1,000 rounds to it. And there's a little bit of wear just on the sort of gap between the first tooth and the next tooth there. A fair bit of oil. We've got I'm going to say POM, but basically plastic piston head there with quite a big, thick, chunky O-ring. So what I'm going to do is just test compression. So what I'm looking to do is, as I get past that vent in there, I shouldn't be able to compress it further with my finger on the end. And that is excellent air compression there. Now I'm going to try the same test again with the air nozzle. I don't expect anywhere near as good because that's not an O-ring based one. That's still pretty good. I can still get the air out. But considering that that's not a sealing type O-ring, that's actually pretty good. It's taking some fair force to get that through there. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I can get that back on. There, I'm happy with that. We'll reassemble that in a second. The Kestral, we've got obviously the unique wiring there that's feeding into the Kestral, which my hands are a little bit greasy, but I can already tell if I don't do this, a lot of people will be like, come on, Pheas, please. So there is the underside of the Kestral then, with this obviously unique system plugged into it, which a large part of it basically is just this sort of plastic framing, metal framing, plastic framing to hold this switch to detect the cutoff. We've then got the rest of the obviously trigger unit underneath, and then just a stock standard gear set under there with the name I always use is a delayer chip on the sector gear, so I'll just plug that back down. Ooh, be careful, Pheas. Don't want to break that. Your new toy. So I'm just going to put that back down there. Feed that back down there. So you can sort of see generally from the bends in the wire where things should sit if it's jumped out. Now obviously we've got an effort has been made to shim this, and it sounds pretty good actually when it's running. It does sound like a good effort has been made. So the idea of these shims is that there is more space inside the gearbox than these gears need. So we put shims on them to position them against each other nicely and to stop any sort of movement on their axis, because that movement can cause scratching, which creates awful noise and things like that. And then we also obviously need to adjust our motor to engage it as best as possible with this first gear here, which we do by adjusting the adjustment screw on the bottom of the motor. Now, based on what I've heard, it's not the best sounding I've ever had, but it sounds pretty good. So an all right effort has been made there. So I'm just going to rotate that round. Now, what I am noticing is that the anti-reversal latch is really, really nicely playing, that it's not jumped out of its holder. It's not trying to ping away everywhere. Usually this anti-reversal latch, which puts pressure on this to stop it winding backwards. So if you've ever rebuilt a gearbox and this went in wrong, as in it's not stopping the wind back, after you stop firing you'll hear like I'm not going to make the noise because I always get bullied for it, picked on for it, but an unwinding noise. It's because the gear set is winding backwards basically, and that is why. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to just go for reassembly then. So I'm just going to hook the spring on there. So I've just hooked it on there, and this front hole is going to go on this pin in here. These holes, matching holes in the cylinder head, one's going to go on this peg here, the other one's going to sit in that one there. And what I'm looking to do is that this cylinder is going to sit nicely in the gap, so if I run my finger underneath, it should be flush basically. So I'm going to hook that on there, on that little pin. I'm going to pull against the spring and wiggle everything backwards, and it should drop down nicely. I'm just going to push the spring down as far as it'll go. Now it will invariably try to sort of, and I can see there it's lifting up a little bit, and it will jump about a little bit. There is not an awful lot you can do about that. You're just going to have to work with it. The two teeth here, there's two on the underside, so I'm just making sure that the piston is sat on its track like that. So with the delayer chip here that helps to basically reduce any feeding issues, is just about to engage the tappet plate but not engaging it. So we're now ready to put the other half of the gearbox on. I've called it top half a couple of times because, you know, in this orientation it is the top half, and then I've had comments going, no, it's not a top half, it's the right hand side and things like that. I get it, all right? Let's, you know, there's more important things to fight and argue about, isn't there, really? So I'm going to drop that back on there. And I'm going to wiggle it around. I can see all the gears are virtually in the right place. I'm going to click that in. Now, I did need to click that back in because it's a little bit of a snug fit into the cylinder head. And if you remember, we had to sort of pry it off a little bit. Now, what I'm looking for is that it's gone back basically flush, that there's no blatantly obvious gaps anywhere. The wires are not being nipped or crushed anywhere or anything like that. So we are good then to start to put in our screws back in. So I'm going to bring my Torx 9 back in that I just happen to have. Amazing the amount of junk I've got. If you think I should do a renewed tool collection video, let me know down below and I will get to filming that. In this top set of screws across the top there, make sure to leave that one empty because that's for the wire clip. So it's the first, second and fourth that we're going to put a screw into. And then we're going to sink all these screws back into the lower half. Okay, make sure you roll it backwards first so it clicks into the threads, because it should be easy to just go in straight away. Next one. Next one. Next one. And next one. Get that out of the way. So the next thing I have to do is I can bring this clip round and put it on there, and I can see where the footprint of the screw went from the mark. Now this one was the much smoother one, the smaller, tighter grouping of threads. So I'm just going to poke that in there, and it should just easily, again, remember, if you're having to force it, it's taking a lot of hard work, then you're likely damaging something like the threads or something, so keep that in mind. This one then is just going to sit into there, so it sits flush into this little gap here, and then I'm just going to drop that screw into there, bring in my obscenely long screwdriver, there we go, finding those threads. Now what I do want to do is keep that pushed against the top there. I've got my finger pushing on it there whilst I tighten that down. I want to keep it, you know, secure to the top there. That's still free moving. We'll smooth the sticker out. K24, I'm sorry for ruining your sticker. So our gearbox is back together. What I'm going to do at this point now is I'm going to stick the spring back in. So I'm just going to wiggle that in, and it's going to go all the way in until we hit compression point. And then I'm just going to hold it, push it in, and it gets stuck. I don't know if you saw that, but that was the spring guide flying across my room. Let's try that again, shall we? And again. Do you know what? This is where I should just use. I was just about to say, use the flathead like intended, because you know there's a flathead hole in there, slot in there. So just, you know, use what's there. It's there for a reason. That was a little bit stiff, so I'm just going to quarter turn until it comes back flush against the back there. And I know then that it's in the right place. So next thing we're ready for is our selectors. So the first one we need is this little cog here. So what we're going to do is we are going to drop that in, and there's like a little hole there, and that's got a sort of an extrusion there. So we're just going to push that under our selector plate until it drops into that little crevice. There we go. And then what we need is, that is the safe position where we've got the bulk of this sort of semicircle. It's got these little teeth in that shape there, in that position. That is where we need it to be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this gear in from this side. I'm going to drop it in and line it up like that. Now, the alignment of this is not important. What is important is when we flip it over, make sure we're not rotating those gears. I'm going to bring the other side of this. Now, this has got a D shape in it, so make sure that you line that up, and it should just compress on nice and easy. What's important here is that we've got two little teeth facing up, and we need to get them basically in a horizontal line like that, in line with the gearbox, the same as this horizontal line here. And as long as we're on that same bearing, then we are in a good place, and that is ready to go back into our body. So that is the orientation of this one. Typical. There is the orientation of that one, which I've now got to put back in. If they move at all, it's absolutely fine. Make sure you start with that one to get that horizontal first. That stayed horizontal. That's perfect. Right, so now we can bring in the body. I'm just keeping my finger on the underside on that little cog so it can't go anywhere. Just going to work those in there. If you do need to remove the assembly there, you will have to remove the two screws there to remove that. It is an ambidextrous mag catch on both sides, but again, it looks like it's proprietary as well. So I'm just going to drop that in there. Again, just making sure that I think that's just jumped out of its position. Now we should be all right. Let's lift it back up again. I'm not happy. So what I'm doing, there we go, is I'm just trying to keep those selectors in the right position. Which is easier said than done. So I'm just going to drop that in there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So at that point now, I've safely got the wires I can see are tucked round. There is like a little channel round there for them to come round, so they are quite safe. So whilst I am sort of in this position, I'm just going to push the trigger pin back through. So I should have been able to see that there was basically a continuous gap, that's nothing in the way, and the teeth were on this side. I'm going to push this rear body pin in. I'm sure I'm going to have forgotten something in a second and go blast. I'm going to push the clip back onto the pin. Now for this, I might, oh no. Wow, that was easy. I was just going to say I might need to lay it down, and I managed to get it on straight away, and it's clipped into place. I can see that the pin is there. I'm happy with that for that. The back is on. We can now bring that back into place. In fact, we'll do the selectors now. So the selectors, I did talk about that they are different. So the left hand side, which is where if you're a right-handed your thumb will be, has got a hole in it for the little springy click bit, and it's got a different system to link into this selector than the other one. So you need to keep that in mind, that they are not swappable, and you just need to keep that compressed, wiggle it around, and it will lock into place. We do need a Torx 8, which that's 15. There's my 8, although I don't trust that now. That's 6. That's 7. There we go. Let's bring in this Torx 8. Now, with these ones, you do need to tighten them down, obviously, but be careful about over tightening, because the metal can be, on any brand, can be a little bit sort of pot metal-esque. The selector from the other side then, I'm going to put that in. So this has got protrusions on it and holes in this one. The other one had holes in there and protrusions on this bit. So that just wiggles in there now, and we're going to tighten that down. And then we've got, if we look there, if I nice and firm to operate round. Ambidextrous selectors are back in play, which is good. Next, I'm going to bring in this back plate again. I'm going to drop that in. Now you can see I've already put it in the wrong way round. It will only go in one way round, so keep that in mind. And then I'm going to bring in my, maybe it's the same one again. It is. Again, make sure that you are not forcing anything into any threads, because you're going to damage something. If it doesn't go easily, then you're not in the threads properly. So come back slightly until you get a click. If you're not sure, just try going forwards anyway. And if it's immediately difficult, please stop, because you will damage threads on things. And there is nothing worse than getting somebody's pew and them going, I done a silly. And they've threaded something really badly and you can't get it out, you're struggling. This one. Now it's those in, then we're going to bring the big chunky one in that needed the Torx 25, was it? There we go. I'm going to go backwards on that. I heard it click straight away. Or did that? Am I just making stuff up? I am making stuff up. There we go. Then we got into it. Now the importance of this one is, obviously it's keeping our spring secure, but what it's also doing is, we haven't got vents in there, but it's pulling the spring guide straight and solid so that it can't move about, causing issues with the spring. So that one's particularly important to get in there. Next we can bring in our pistol grip then. So I'm just going to gently, the black one went in the back, it went in the front and comes up the front. There's no crazy crossing over. The red comes in at the back and stays at the back. Just gently fed them through. Make sure that the wires don't get trapped underneath the pistol grip itself. They should come cleanly out the gearbox and into the pistol grip. And same again, go backwards until you catch the threads. You'll feel the click. Again, I do apologise for the lighting in here. It makes for an entertaining evening. Then we get the next one. That's that tight. So I'm just going to pull the wires out of the way. Now what I'm trying to do here is basically pull, because I know the black wire needs to come this side to lean over this way, and the red wire needs to come this side to lean over that way. So I'm just kind of holding them out towards that direction. I've got a red button on top and a clear one there, so we know that that's the orientation of the motor. So then we've just got the little spade tab in there. That's what the red terminal will go onto. Same for the black, there's just a spade connector there for it to go onto. A little bit picky about going in. Don't worry if you need, use needle nose pliers if you need to help you get that in. Check that you can move the motor and that they're not just freely pinging around. They should be on that motor firmly. Then we're going to bring the base plate in, which only has one orientation there. That screw is a little bit stuck there. That one's coming out. Smaller. Wait, what's that? Oh, that's one. That's a 9. Let's get the 8 in there. Just wondering where the other one, so that one's tightened down. Bring the front screw in, again, make sure we're in those threads. There should be no real resistance until you get fully tightened in. There's our pistol grip. We'll bring our stock back in now. So it's currently in its folded position. So lining up, I'm just going to click it into position there. Hold it in position. I'm going to drop the screw and locking part in. Which it wants to fight me on. Of course it does. Oh, there's a locating notch there that means it locates itself over a specific sort of point. So you can actually, in theory, adjust it up or down a little bit, the stock, depending on what your preference is. So I'm just going to drop that in there. Pretty sure, yeah. So that was a 15, 10, Tox 10. Get that on there. That's that in. We can fold that back out and lock that in place, and then we can bring our upper receiver in. Now, this is the little tricky bit. So if you remember, we did talk about that this needs to go sort of vertical as it's fed down. Now, if I look down the upper there, I can see it. So I'm just going to angle my wiring in. Like that. Again, it's not a bad design, to be fair. I'm just going to bring that in and drop that over the wiring like that. Make sure that everything is feeding out. There's my wiring coming out of there. Making sure I'm not crimping them. I have completely missed the air nozzle there. So I'm just going to drop that back. Make sure that your hop unit is back to the air nozzle, and then this should just go backwards like that. I'm going to flip it over. It is very spring loaded because that's the spring on the hop unit trying to push it away. I'm just going to hold that and compress it all down. Tap that in. It does need quite a bit of compression and tapping in. And then last but not least, we can push our battery connector back in to bring in our battery cover. And then we have it. We have not finished yet. I've just realized two things. One, that's come off the screw on the quick change spring, which I'll, the bolt under there, which I'll sort afterwards. And then we've got one last screw there, which is also T10, which just secures our upper down. And there we have it. We have disassembled our DMP9 M924 for repair and maintenance. Hope you've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed it immensely. I think there's some clever design choices in there to make things a little bit easier. Please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. The unboxing is down below, and I will see you next time. Bye.